Let me see. Welcome to the Trans and Military Debate. This is a structured debate to bring light to the issues brought up by President Trump's tweets about banning transgenders in the military. Each respondent will have 3 minutes to respond, and the person rebutting the response will have 2 minutes to respond to the respondent. If anyone interrupts the respondent or the person rebutting, there is a 45-second penalty. This means you'll have 45 seconds less to respond to a new question or rebut a question responded to. For the purposes of this debate, we are defining transgender as one who suffers from gender dysphoria and is starting or are currently in the process of transitioning either fully or partially. Our debaters right now are Veritas Foxy, and say hi.
Hello.
And Wred Fawks.
Hello.
All right. If you have any questions you wish to ask, please wait until the end of the stream. There will be a 20-minute slot where you can ask questions. Any repeated questions will not be answered. Any questions not pertaining to the issue will not be answered. For those of you wondering, I am keeping my eye on the incident in Virginia, and I am amassing all the reports and accounts I can to report it fairly and completely as I can. That will be out on Monday's newscast. So let me go ahead and tweet this. Actually, it tweeted out saying, oh, we got an extra person. Yay. I don't know who's in the crowd, but here we go. All right, my first question is going to be to Foxy. What is your stance on pre-op transgenders wanting to enlist in the military?
Pre-op, that's before surgery. I'm not really for it because there could be an instance where they're simply joining the military to have the government pay for their transition, or they could end up having medical requirements while they're in the military, and there's just a lot of complications that go along with it, like somebody with a pre-existing condition joining.
Okay. Would you like to rebut that, Fred?
No, I completely agree with that position.
Okay. Same timer. Luca Blight says, might I, as a military member myself, be allowed a place in this stream? Okay, let's see here. It is a structured debate, so you may have to wait till I call on you. Can somebody pass him a link?
I am mobile, so I cannot do very much on that.
I'm mobile as well.
All right, Luca, if you can, my DMs are open. If you can DM me on Twitter, because my computer is a potato, I have to shut down Discord. Otherwise, everything freezes every 10 minutes. And I will pass you a link. Okay, the next question is for Foxy. What is your stance on post-op transgenders wanting?
There's still an issue with that because Wred Fawks will probably have to answer this. People that have already transitioned or had the medical transition still require some medical treatments even after they have completed their transitioning. That still puts a hindrance on the units when deploying to a combat zone or even more near a combat zone where they may not be able to receive their treatments or medication. And that's even with post-op. But I think Wred Fawks will be able to answer that question a little better.
All right, Red, would you like to rebut that?
In terms of post-op, there is, well, first off, there's the recovery time, which can go out as far as 2 months from various surgeries. And there's also the issue of medical treatment in terms of having to still be on hormone replacement therapy, even at a lower dose, and the blood work that needs to be kept on top of along with that. So it still offers the issue of care and supply issues.
Greetings. Anybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Waiting on Maddy-MWM.
I was muted. I was pulling a dumb thing. Okay. Let's try this again. Hello, Lucas. How are you?
I am well. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. Here is a question for you for the debate, and you have 3 minutes to have your answer in full. What is your stance on transgenders transitioning while enlisted?
As far as transgenders enlisting, I am completely for it. The surgery getting paid for by the military, aka taxpayers, aka government functionalities, I disagree with. Now, here's the conundrum I see with it, is that transgenders feel discomforted in the body that they were born with, dysphoria, which is what it's called, and so they can't perform their duties to their full functions because they're discomforted by the bias. It creates a sort of psychological disconnection with themselves, and it is considered a mental deformation. Now, it's not to belittle those that have this condition. It's not to say that they're lesser than anyone else. It's just a condition they have. They were essentially born in the wrong body, according to their psychological mindset. However, I don't agree with the U.S. government paying for the physical surgery, conducting it. Now, on the other hand, there are people saying that, well, you know, it costs X amount of dollars and we spent so much on contracting, on the wars abroad and such. We spend more collectively on national defense than any other nation in the world. So I dismiss the entire economical argument in regards to the budget of the defense. But my problem is that not everybody quite gets why we should support such a thing. And I feel like the message should get out that, you know, people with this kind of condition, they can do their due diligence. They can do their duty. But we need to show those that just don't quite get it why they should be able to do it.
Okay.
So to summarize everything is that people don't quite, even myself to be included, don't quite get the whole body dysphoria thing. I understand that body dysphoria is a legitimate conditioning in one's mind where they're not comfortable in the body that they were born with. But that said, there needs to be more research done in terms of taxpayer funding, because not everybody fully is on board with it. So I feel like more people should be convinced in that regard. That makes sense. So basically, education should be put forward to those people. And then once that education is put forward, maybe more people will understand and more people will be accepting of it. And then we can kind of press forward from there. Right now, it's just too early. That said, though, those with body or those that are considered transgender, should they be allowed to serve? Yes. Is Trump's transgender ban a good thing? Not really.
All right. Would you like to rebut that, Wred? Wred?
There is one point that I can rebut, and that is in terms of cost. The pure cost, straight and simple, and this is across a average of costs for 4 years, including 2 years primary hormone replacement therapy, 2 years of post-operation hormone therapy, and this is not counting the 3-month blood work for each year, which would be 12. I was in the middle of all of the freaking math on that, but I'm already at $43,500, and that's in HRT surgeries. That is also not counting the downtime for recovery from surgeries and the replacements that would need to be in the soldier's position during their time of recovery.
Okay.
So it actually is incredibly expensive per.
Okay. The next question is going to be, let me see. This is a 3-part question for Wred. How often must the HRT be taken? How long, if necessary, can you go without? If you have to go without, are there any lasting effects to not being able to take the HRT?
In terms of going without, lasting effects with not being on it would be a slow return to what the body actually produces, depending on whether or not you are post-surgery or pre-surgery. In terms of not being able to take it, the effects of that, essentially, at least in terms of male to female, said soldier would essentially go into menopause because the body no longer has estrogen, because that's crashing, and because they no longer have, because the testosterone blockers have a longer lasting effect than the estrogen does. They don't have the testosterone production, so they go into the same sort of hormonal imbalance that a woman going through menopause would go through. And that is a pretty nasty psychological effect that can really damage the morale of the group. And what was the first portion of the question again?
First portion of the question is, how often must the HRT be taken?
Every day. In terms of the dosages that I'm on, it is twice a day. I have 100 milligrams of spironolactone, which is a testosterone blocker that I take in the morning, with 5 milligrams of estradiol, which is a estrogen supplement, both taken in the morning, and then another 50 milligrams of spironolactone taken around dinner time.
Okay. How long do you think, if you were to have been deployed, could you go before having any lasting, being able to feel any effects from not having your HRT?
Not having HRT within 3 days.
Okay. Excuse me. Would either Luca or Foxy like to add to this?
As far as what the military envisioned as far as the transitional phase, in regards to, let's say, male to female or female to male, is that the person going through the transition will not necessarily be deployed or deployable, and that is because they want the whole entire thing to go through. However, with Trump's, granted, it was a tweet. It wasn't an official policy in action.
Yeah.
So Trump isn't saying, like, trans are no longer permitted in the military. He's not saying that at all. Because Twitter, what he puts on Twitter is not policy. It's I don't understand why he put that on Twitter at all. But when it comes to the people going through the hormonal transformation or transition, excuse me, they will not be considered deployable, which is why it will be a planned thing in that person's career, so that they can support the mission, if you will, without impacting where we need bodies to perform our missions abroad in, the Middle East, in Europe, in Asia, etc. So it's essentially saying, like, we need to create a environment where those that are transitioning, that are going through that whole entire phase, are able to perform their functionality like they want to serve. They are able to perform their jobs in a capacity that affects the mission in a positive manner without impacting where we need bodies abroad.
Okay. Reset the clock. Go back this way. I am so ghetto, but this is about as good as I can do this. All right, this is to Foxy. Let's say your unit is being deployed and there's someone in your unit who is going through transition. How does this affect the readiness of your unit?
It actually hampers the readiness of the unit, because now the unit has to take into considerations everything that that individual person needs. And when you join the military, you lose your identity. You have no identity. You are no longer an individual. You are a unit. And trying to take care of 100 people, and they have this one individual they have to take extra consideration for, and they need to make sure this person has that or that. Hampers them. I mean, I'm the only female in my unit, and just my presence there puts a hamper on my unit, because now they have to take into consideration, how am I going to bathe? How am I going to use the restroom? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? What if this happens? What if that happens? I mean, there's a lot that goes into this, and it just down when they have to treat somebody special.
Okay. Wred, would you like to rebut that? Wred?
I did not catch any of that at all.
Oh, God.
I'm
It's
sorry.
basically, I'm saying it does bring down the readiness of the unit when they have to treat one person with special accommodations. Because the unit is trying to get everyone, over 100 people, ready for combat, and they have to stop what they're doing just to do something special for one person. When you're in the military unit, you no longer have individual identity. You are part of a unit.
I have a retort for that.
All right.
Here's the thing, like, when it comes to the transgender population, how much of a percentage do they make of the entire U.S. population? Not really much of anything, if we're being honest here. And with that regards, how much of the population signs up to enlist in the military? Less than 1%. So making that exception to that one individual, it's minute. They will plan around that. That was the entire
It's not
point.
minute for a unit.
You're missing my point. They will plan around that. For a unit, they will plan for that individual to be included in the entire schema of said unit. So if they need that person to fill that slot, let's say you're in a unit of 25 people. Let's just make up a number. 25 people, and one of those 25 happens to be a transgender going through hormonal therapy, going through their transition. They will find an individual to replace that person, the transgender, to fill that quota to accomplish the mission, because the military is god awesome at fulfilling that goal of accomplishing said mission.
Well, that's where the cost of having a transgender individual in a unit actually goes up, because you have to find a person, train the person, and clothe the person, and the cost goes up.
And how much do we spend on wars abroad? I'm just curious. Or how about
how
much do we spend on contracting to Lockheed Martin, Boeing, those type of individuals? It has nothing to do with the cost of the individual themselves. It has to do with the cost of the mission being accomplished. We can accomplish the mission with like a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of the entire military population going through a transitional phase, because barely even 1% of the population enlists in the military, and barely a percentage of that is transgender. It will not raise costs. Trust me on that.
And that is the end of that one. The next question I am going to direct to Foxy, and that question is, what are your views on pre-op transgenders using the bathing and latrine facilities according to the gender they are transitioning to and not the gender they are transitioning from?
That actually I've had personal experience on. I do not believe in a transgender pre-op using the bathroom or latrines of who they want to transition into, because, and no, it's not because women are afraid of dicks. They're in the military. Feminists have infiltrated us, and they've grounded into our heads this whole rape culture. You need to be careful because men are going to rape you. They pounded into our heads to the point that it's being with males alone sometimes because of this whole stupid thing. So when I had some of the females go into the bathroom, to the latrine to shower, we had a male in the bathroom, and no one knew except for maybe 2 or 3 females that there was a transgender. Well, it startled the females because they didn't know that there was an intact males and showering. And this also brings up another problem of false claims of sexual assault and harassment being thrown against males. So if you have a transgender male going, or female going to male, and she's pre-op and she's in the male showers, be scared that, oh my God, I'm going to be in there and we're going to get a false claim thrown against us, or you could have the occasional asshole, horrible person that might actually hurt the individual. You have to separate them. There's so much problems that arise from sharp complaints and yeah, this is a lot that goes into that. I do not agree in pre-ops being in their preferred showers.
Okay. Wred, would you like to rebut that?
No, I further agree with that. I mean, as a pre-op trans person, I try not to use the bathroom anywhere in public, just for fear of anything that might come of it as a result of things going on with feminism.
Okay.
So.
Okay, the next question is going to be directed at you, Wred. In an inline unit is on the front line, though these lines do not typically exist for, guerrilla warfare. These are troops who are in the field for weeks at a stretch, only the essentials they can carry and items needed solely to keep the unit moving. They can go for long periods of time without being resupplied. Knowing this, what was some of the complications that could arise with soldiers who are transitioning?
And I can only come at this from the male-to-female side, because I have no experience in terms of dealing with hormonal injections that male-to-female or female-to-male would have. But depending on which variant of HRT said soldier is on, I know I'm on pills, but the pills are water-soluble, and most pill bottles that I've seen are not watertight. So, one being the possibility of just losing out on an entire month's supply of the medicine. It's already difficult enough to keep supply lines going with the military, especially in active duty. Something like that, I don't see having a transgender soldier on the front lines as a very viable option.
The short answer is that wouldn't be a problem at all.
How would that not be a problem?
They're not going to put somebody who is in the middle of transitioning in the front lines. Like, they're going to put their transitioning before putting them in the field in Afghanistan or Iraq or what have you, because they will put that whole transitional thing beforehand, because they plan to have this individual go through the 2 to however many years it takes for the entire phase to go through. I'm not entirely sure, so I'm not going to assume it, but I'm going to kind of throw out a general number and say that the United States government and the United States military, they plan with this kind of thing in mind. And to go back to what was asked of Fox, I think her name is, that the whole, the showering type thing, that wouldn't be effective, because when you're in BMT, regardless if you're transgender or not, whatever gender you were assigned at birth is what you enter into the military as. So let's say you're a female going to male or a male going to female. Whatever gender you were given at birth is the gender they will associate you with. And once you have exit out of BMT, have gone through tech school, or in the case of the Army, they kind of combined BMT and tech school together. Regardless of that, they will then join. Pardon?
Let him finish first, Foxy.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
But the point I'm trying to get across is that the military has planned around this whole entire transitional thing, because they understand that there is a psychological aspect to it. So they don't need somebody in the middle of hormonal therapy going out into the desert. They simply will not do that. They won't deploy somebody in the middle of a hormonal transition or a gender transition specifically. Sorry, all these distracting me, but they won't. I'm sorry, I have ADD or some shit right now. But what I'm trying to get across is that they won't deploy somebody in the middle of going through hormonal therapy. Is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. And I believe the question that Foxy wanted to ask you is, when did you join?
I joined in 2010.
Are you still in?
I am.
Okay, because we're the branch. Oppressive Hubby's trying to join. Oh, there he is. I have a rebuttal though, real quick.
Okay.
The problem that we have with, people with pre-existing medical problems being, and this is why they med for people out, is because we can't have people holding slots that we have to locate other people to fill. when we deploy. Units have to rapidly deploy, go, go, go. And they can't take that time to sit there and try to find a replacement. So it's not very combat effective to have people that you have to replace. And you know you're going to have to replace them. That's why they, like with me, I'm probably going to get med boarded out simply for a hip injury.
Right.
Medications or anything like that.
Okay.
I also have another rebuttal, and this comes to the time that it takes to transition.
Okay.
From what was being said about not only med boarding, but also deferred enlistment and everything like that, from what I've seen, you would need to be on the hormones for roughly 2 years before having any sort of SRS, and that has anywhere between a 3-month and a 6-month recovery time. And the averages from reports that I'm seeing is that 6 months is 90% full fitness. So even then, it's not a complete recovery at 6 months. So you're looking at a minimum of 2.5 years that the soldier would be offline.
All right. For Foxy, what complications have arisen with inline units in the midst of transitioning?
Say again?
What complications have arisen with inline units in the midst of transitioning?
Do I agree with them?
No, what complications have arisen? In other words, have you had any experience with any complications with somebody in your unit who has been transitioning?
Twice, actually. We had to replace one female in supply because she was transitioning from female to male. That put a hindrance on the unit's ability to deploy rapidly, and we had that one individual that was scared the crap out of our females.
Okay.
Maybe Oppressive Hubby can answer that one too.
Let me see. For is he on?
Yeah, he's on right now. No, honey, you're muted.
Oh, okay. All right. The question is, what complications have arisen with inline units in the midst of transitioning?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. All right, sorry. All right, I haven't had any particular experience with this due to the branch that I'm in, which I'm not going to say.
Not gonna have either.
So we haven't had any particular experience with it, with transitioning people, but we've had experiences with and bisexual people in the units. We have an easier time with those individuals because they are, don't really have to say anything, but we're more accepting of that. I mean, everybody has somebody they know that's, sexual or bisexual, but the first initial reaction is always the problem. Most heterosexuals aren't scared of them; they just don't know how to handle the issue. But as far as trans, we've never had that particular issue, but I understand exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be issues. There's going to be complaints. People are going to say things that are inappropriate. Line units are mostly male, and transitioning, there's probably going to be a problem. But the thing is, like most units, they adapt easily. They deal with it. But the problem is that everybody has to be combat ready. And there's a lot of times that we have to, deploy detraining for 2 weeks. I mean, where I don't get a shower, medication with me, because I'm an older gentleman. If I don't bring my medication with me, I'm not going to get resupplied. When on training, we ran out of almost food and water 2 or 3 times. And they do this on purpose to prepare you for the situations that you might get put in. So if this person requires special treatment, and the loss of one soldier is felt throughout the unit. Person whose job is that to be taken care of by somebody else. We don't, just hold on to extra people.
Okay.
That person has to do a specific job. I'm sorry, I'm taking too long.
That's okay.
Actually, I have a retort to that.
Okay.
I'm assuming your name is this is all I'm seeing right now is OPP. So I'm assuming your name is Op, correct?
Yeah, it's Oppressive Hubby. That's not my choice in name.
Okay.
That would be Fox's choice in name.
So I think I have a gander as to what branch you're a part of. I'm a part of a different branch from you, and that is that there are some branches that transition entire units versus an individual person. Let's say, for example, military branch A transitions 25 people to station B, whereas the other branch transitions just one person to a different station. Now, I'm assuming you're a part of the one branch that transitions 25 people to a different station. I'm a part of the branch that transitions one individual to a certain station based upon duty station needs, etc. So the branches have a different way of putting people in different places. The Army, the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, they all have a different way of doing things in terms of where people are placed at. So I feel like that might be something of a conflict of interest in regards to the transition. Pardon my fucking inability to speak English. The transitional phasing that transgenders go through in terms of hormonal therapy and all that jazz. But we recently went through a briefing about 2 months ago where they explained how they plan to handle transgenders going through the whole hormonal therapy and everything like that. And it would be planned 2 years in advance, and they would plan around the fact that it would impact certain units, it would impact their career, based upon when they would be taken from one station to another. They would plan around that as well. So I feel like there are certain branches, however, that operate in terms of groups as opposed to the individual going from one base to another. So I feel like that might be something of a nuance in this whole entire transgender thing.
Okay. Then my next question is going to be for Foxy. Are there any medical conditions that would render a soldier non-deployable?
Who's the question for? Me? Oh, yeah. There are a lot of medical reasons why you would be classified as non-deployable. It can be something small, like you're on one kind of antidepressant. They actually have a huge long list of medications, and if you're on one of these medications, you cannot deploy. You're non-deployable. I'm probably going to end up non-deployable because of my hips. I know people that are on thyroid medicine that are not going to be, people who've had shoulder surgery that are going to be non-deployable, people with any kind of medication that requires it daily, and if it'll affect you greatly if you suddenly cannot get that medication. People that are on antidepressants, if you suddenly stop taking it, you can become suicidal. So that's why they don't deploy people on antidepressants. If you stop suddenly taking it, it can greatly affect your health, and you can get, for me, because of my hips, I may never be able to carry the full weight of which is up to 60 pounds. I'm not combat effective, so I will be non-deployable. Cancer, diabetes, overweight, underweight, high blood pressure can keep you from deploying. A blood clot in your history can keep you from deploying. Send you through this massive week-long medical exam, analyzing to deploy. Out the ones that have any remote medical issues.
So, someone like me, if I were to get in on a medical waiver because of my bronchitis, I would be considered non-deployable because I rely on an inhaler?
Yes, you will be considered non-deployable.
Okay.
You'll probably be able to deploy to our places like in Germany, or that's not safe side, but like you can deploy to Germany, but you can never deploy to Korea, Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, or anywhere in Africa.
Okay.
Okay. Can I say something? The Press of Heavy wants to say one thing about that.
Yes.
is a curable illness. I mean, you can get rid of it's something like that. So, say if I come down with the flu, I don't get a non-deployable status because something that can be treated and go away. Her specific, chronic bronchitis. Well, then I guess I'm sorry. I just got corrected. Chronic bronchitis. Yeah, that can be a problem. So particularly, and I just wanted to say something about these little statuses that they give this. A large percentage of your soldiers, especially in combat MOSs, they joined this with the intention to fight for the country. And when we, I can't directly link my Hashimoto's. I didn't have it before I came back from overseas. Before I went over there, I didn't have it, and I came back with it. So, and like I said, I can't link it to that. Every year, every time we go through our annual health examination called the PHA, to keep myself off of that non-deployable status so I can continue to go overseas and fight. So, they're not going to want to bring somebody in that's immediately going to go into the non-deployable status. The biggest issue is that I tried to join several times. I did join. I tried to join. They wouldn't let me go in because I had ingrown toenail. It's hard for a soldier to get in. And they want you to stay healthy the whole time in there, and they're going to try to find a way to keep non-healthy people from going into combat.
Okay. My final question is going to be to Wred, because I know Wred was hitting the calculator pretty hard. What are the costs involved in a transgender soldier who wants to transition while enlisted?
All right. While enlisted, I do not know the costs in terms of having a replacement because we would be having to deal with replacements. But I do know we have SRS, which is an average now of $10,000, and that's for getting vaginoplasty.
Well, can you repeat that again? I didn't get that.
All right. Male to female vaginoplasty. Average cost, $10,125. MTF, breast augmentation, average cost of $6,425. You have MTF, facial feminization surgery, which has an average cost of $24,425. Then you have your two drugs, which are spironolactone, 50 milligrams. Those are 35 cents per tab, and that's an average dosage of 150 milligrams. Those must be taken for 2 years before SRS, which is, what was that? I lost the calculation on that, but the total before, this is including 2 years service after the start of transition on estradiol, which is, 37 cents per tab, is $49,193.5. Then if we figure in blood work every 3 months for 4 years, that would be $475, which was my cost per. You get, damn it, not add, another $5,700 atop that. Then 2 a week, or 2 a month, so 24 times 300 for psychological. So that would be, and multiply that by 4 for 4 years. And then another $28,800 in psychotherapy. That's damn near $100,000 for one soldier.
Yeah.
To transition.
Yeah.
And that's just for 4 years.
That's all an elective surgery.
Yep. Politipod says, according to the RAND study, 2,450 soldiers cost us between $2.4 and $8.5 million. So there's a stat there. And we do have a question in the chat, and I'm going to throw this up to anyone who may possibly have an answer. Falcon Millennial asked earlier during the debate, do you think the U.S. Coast Guard would try to allow transgenders in?
Yes.
Well, they don't
I
have
don't
to
think that
deploy,
it should.
really. They just sit there.
Well, they do. All right, dear.
They don't just sit
All
there.
right.
They do actually do a duty.
Okay,
Duty?
Foxy, let's
You
try
said
not-
duty.
I would say that transgender people should fall in with the same line that you would put people who are diabetic and such else, which would be non-deployable, non-enlistable as a result of cost and the dangers involved with their medical treatments.
Okay. So, I don't have, the only problem I have particularly with this, the cost will be incurred by the taxpayers to pay for something outside of training, clothing, deploying, doing all the things that we're supposed to do for it. Example of why we haven't done this before. Now, I wear glasses. I'm nearsighted, so far distance sight is not, away. But since the Army has a cheaper option, $5,000 to give me corrective surgery to work, I don't have to wear glasses anymore, and I don't have that fear if I'm out on a convoy or out on a mission. If my glasses fall off, I won't be able to see. Paid for. That case, I'm combat effective now, but that gives me combat effectiveness. I don't have to worry about eye protection on it. So we're willing to pay. Willing to pay for this is something that, whether they, don't transition, if they don't transition and they come into the military, all this medication, then they're still combat effective. So we pay for this, and then we make an effective soldier in the process for 2-3 years. And the normal active duty service is 4 years long. So you only get maybe 1 year or a year and a half, maybe 2, depending on how quickly all of this happens, of having a combat effective soldier.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Basically,
but
we're spending money on stuff that doesn't really help the unit.
But again, you're talking about less than 1% of the population. And, if you take into consideration all the costs you divvied up, which it is a substantial amount if you take into consideration what one individual could possess, in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that much in terms of our budget spending, because we spend more on contracting than we spend on anything. And that's where I feel like there's a disconnection with where the population abroad sees like, oh, well, my taxpayer money is going to this particular thing. But when in reality, it's more going towards the contractions that we have with Lockheed Martin, with the manufacturers of tanks, of Humvees, etc., as opposed to the actual paychecks of, the individual military members' well-being. Because we spend more on the contract than we do than anything else.
Understood. So
why added extra cost?
yeah.
Foxy, for those that are...
Because the added extra cost is not even a percentage into the grand total that we currently spend. We spend more than the next 25 nations combined. And how many of those are allies of ourselves?
We are not debating the cost of contracting. We are debating the cost and worth of having transgender soldiers within the U.S. Armed Services.
And that cost
I would argue that they are not.
Next to non-existent.
Then, if it is such a small percentage, why is everyone getting in a huff about a small, very, very minute percentage of the population not being allowed to join? Joining is not a right.
Of course it's not right. It's a privilege. Yeah, exactly. That's not what I'm debating. I'm not debating the right to enlist. I'm debating what it is to allow certain individuals to enlist. We can afford the however many transgenders we have, which there are far fewer transgenders than there are fucking heterosexuals, bisexuals, whatever. cisgender, whatever term you want to throw out. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the whole like not gender dysphoria, but the whole like non-binary, binary, whatever the fuck. I'm not trying to like say that you guys are involved in that whole entire argument, but the whole entire like, oh, there exists 72 genders, blah blah blah. But let's say, for example, one person is transgender in the U.S. military. They make up a percentage of 1% of the entire U.S. population. It's not really going to affect military spending at all.
Okay, and I have one final question, and this is going to be for Foxy.
Hey.
Now that obviously we have the military head scrambling to come up with some sort of something to answer for Trump's tweets, which, in my opinion, shouldn't have been done to the public. He should have actually sat down and talked to people first. For the transgender people that are currently serving, what's going to happen to them?
The ones that are currently in, was a question like what should happen to them?
Yeah, what's going to happen to them when the ban takes effect?
Okay, right now the ban was technically never really lifted. What happened was Obama pushed out the new policy about a year ago to lift the ban on transgenders. Well, Mad Dog pushed it off, implement this overall lift of the ban until December 1st, until the branches can write up proper policies. So the only thing that has actually ever changed was that people who are transgender can now serve in the military openly, but they had never lifted the ban on people being able to join that are transgender. Now, what the DOD is going to do, they have to take some time and rewrite the policy already in. More than likely, what will happen is that they will write the policy to where if you are currently transitioning and you are on a non-deployable status due to your medical requirements of transitioning, you will probably med board out thing, because if you are offered a med board, it's the equivalent of a medical retirement, which means you will still get all your veteran benefits. So they're not, kicking them out the door and leaving them with nothing. Some options, they will take care of them. They have never once not done that for people who are already in their heads anyway to those that were already transitioning before the ban was lifted. If they were spending the money from their own pockets and because to pay for it. I know a lot of people in the Guard and Reservists who were transitioning using their civilian medical, not the military medical, and most of them just turned away and looked the other way, depending on the unit. Line units maybe not so much. So no one's going to witch hunt and kick any of them out, like so many reactionists are saying.
Okay. Thank you. I figured I had to ask that question for people that were watching and, wondering when they got this far in the debate. I thank you guys for showing up. I got a really good education out of it because I know my father is a Vietnam veteran, but that I wasn't in the military, and I know there's a lot of things military-wise that a lot of people didn't want to know or didn't know, and, that was one of the reasons I wanted to have this debate, that there are certain things that are expected when you enlist. There are certain health requirements that you have to meet in order to be in the military. And, the workings of the military are unknown to, civilians, especially the finer details. And so by doing this debate, I was hoping to bring some of that to light. And I thank all of you for coming to the debate. And hopefully, if we ever have one of these again, I'll be able to have the same panel members and maybe somebody else that, isn't military, so we can actually have a 2v2, because it's worked out a little different, but it worked out pretty good because nobody was talking over each other, which is what I really wanted.
Oppressive Hubby's phone died. That's why he suddenly stopped talking.
I kind of figured something happened like that. So once again,
it died.
Yeah. So thank you very much once again for coming. Everybody in the live chat, thank you for being in the live chat. Thank you for the questions that were asked. May everyone in the live chat take care, and may everyone on the live stream. Thank you very much for your service. You do a service that I could never bring myself to do. I've always felt that it was more of a calling than a job. Everybody have a wonderful and nice evening and enjoy the rest of your Saturday.